Hello, and welcome to the Friday Five for November 14th. I'm Samantha Sobolewski.
And I'm Alexis, Allison. Each week, we'll be tackling 5 pop culture topics and giving you our 2 cents, as well as some input from an expert. This week, we chatted with Ryerson Associate Professor Tracy Rainey about women in political positions of power in television. It all leads up to the premiere of State of Affairs on Monday. We'll also tackle terrible sequels. We're looking at you, Dumb and Dumber 2. Spotify. What does the music sharing service mean for Canadians and for Taylor Swift? We'll chat Wahlburgers, the burger chain that merges Marky Mark's meat and Michael Weckerly's money. And Winnie the Pooh. Ryerson has recently opened an exhibit in memory of the willy-nilly silly old bear. We'll tell you why it matters.
Madam Secretary, The Good Wife, Homeland, Scandal, Commander-in-Chief, and now State of Affairs. Television dramas have found a niche, and it seems to be women in political powerful roles. The latest offering is the NBC drama State of Affairs, premiering November 17th. It looks at the relationship between a female U.S. president, played by Alfre Woodard, and her right-hand woman, played by Katherine Heigl, a CIA officer skilled in averting national security threats.
We talked to Ryerson Associate Professor Tracy Rainey about what this trend means. Rainey is a Ryerson faculty expert in both women and politics and an associate professor in the Department of Politics and Public Administration. Rainey told us that it's a good thing we're seeing more women on television in traditionally male-dominated roles like law, politics, and medicine.
Because for a long time, women didn't play these roles on TV. They were domesticated housewives, they were mothers, they were, their roles were prescribed by their relationship to the family. So it's quite refreshing, I think, to see women take on these high-powered positions.
But Rainey says we need to contextualize these representations of women on TV, especially since they're cast against a sea of other women on television in more traditional roles. Think the Kardashian family and the Real Housewives series.
So I think we notice it simply because it goes against the norm of seeing mostly men play these roles.
According to Rainey, there's more to this than meets the eye. Women are only able to occupy these male-dominated positions by making huge personal sacrifices, or by becoming tougher, more masculine characters.
Really what this tells us is that it sort of propagates the assumption that, the feminist goals of women achieving full equality are quite unattainable. It's just not possible. And that there's actually real consequences, personal consequences for these women when they do move into the public sphere of politics and business.
Rainey uses Claire Underwood from House of Cards as an example. She's strong, sometimes ruthless, and possesses a kind of masculinized quality. But at the end of the day, she's still a male politician's wife.
She's remained childless. And so we're sort of left with this question as the audience of, is she as ruthless and cold as she is portrayed because she never became a mother? Does she have this sort of deep regret that she made all these sacrifices, in order to have this access to political power?
When women play roles in power positions that are traditionally male-dominated, Rainey says the broader message is the potential consequences women face when crossing over the boundary between public and private life.
There's some deeply problematic messaging going on from a feminist perspective on the ability of women to attain power and to have power and exercise it, and yet still be a complete and whole and happy person.
State of Affairs hasn't premiered yet, but this trend seems to hold true in the trailer. Katherine Heigl's character wants to avenge the murder of her husband, who also happens to be the president's son. Women may be in power, but only because men are there to drive their motives.
20 years after the original Dumb and Dumber came out, Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey are reprising their roles as Lloyd and Harry this weekend by jumping back into their mutt car for Dumb and Dumber 2, a sequel that I neither wanted nor needed. I didn't think Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey were desperate for a paycheck, but clearly I may be wrong, Lexi.
It's just so weird to me seeing Jeff Daniels as the stone-faced, fast-talking Will McAvoy on The Newsroom on Sunday nights on HBO, and then seeing the goofy-faced version of Daniels on the Dumb and Dumber 2 trailers. I mean, I'm sure it was a hell of a lot of fun to film, and I guess that's the point. But by no means will Dumb and Dumber 2 be getting any of my hard-earned cash.
Yet somehow Variety is predicting the film to be #1 at the box office this weekend, raking in around $30 million. Speaking of terrible sequel ideas, a third Bill and Ted movie is also apparently in the works, which, if you remember, starred Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure came out in 1989, and its sequel came out in 1991. The first film was, well, excellent, as its title suggested, and the sequel was just okay, but our obsession with resurrecting films from the past is a poor film trend that we need to put a stop to.
Moving on, the internet is abuzz with Taylor Swift removing her entire song library from the popular music streaming service Spotify. Spotify recently made its first venture into the Canadian markets. Jason Aldean has also just pulled his new album, Old Boots, New Dirt, off of Spotify. Spotify has been criticized for its low payout. For one song play, an artist earns somewhere between 6/1000th of a cent and 8/100th of a cent. When written out, that looks like 0.006. It's not a pretty number. Personally, I haven't even Googled the Spotify website since it came to Canada, and I have no interest in jumping on the streaming bandwagon. But I know you have an account, Sam.
Yes, I am an avid Spotify user. Now, I can't say that I'm upset Jason Aldean is pulling his music from Spotify because I avoid the country section of Spotify like the plague. And Taylor Swift, it is her prerogative what she does with her music. However, music streaming services do appear to be the future of the music industry. I mean, just look at the way Netflix has changed television. And Jason Aldean's new album has already been available on free streaming services for over a month, according to Rolling Stone. So this isn't likely to boost his sales at all. Taylor Swift is virtually the only artist selling a substantial number of records anymore, but eventually even she will need to join the trend if she wants to stay relevant. Also, does Taylor Swift really need to be that concerned with how much more money she's making, on top of the millions she's already raking in?
I think it's important to note here that T Swift probably isn't making these decisions on her own. Her record company, Big Machine, would also have a hand in the cookie jar. And it's a really, really big cookie jar. I tried doing some research and was prepared to throw a bunch of numbers at our listeners, but this is the bottom line. Swift is good, real good. Her album 1989 is set to not only sell more copies than any other album in 2014, it's set to blow them out of the water. I don't know who's the winner and loser in this Spotify story, but I do know 1989 is a spectacularly well put together and catchy pop album. And if people can't get her music through Spotify, they're just going to get it somewhere else, somewhere potentially a lot less legal.
Amen, Lexi. If you tuned into yesterday's Ryersonian TV broadcast, you may have heard that Mark Wahlberg's Meat is coming to Toronto. Restaurant chain Wahlburgers, owned by actor-musicians Mark and Donnie Wahlberg and their chef brother Paul, is finally opening a location at the Soho Metropolitan Hotel today. The restaurant, with Bay Street and Dragon's Den superstar Michael Weckerly as an investor, features an extensive burger menu and the likes of delicious, liquored-up milkshakes.
And according to the Toronto Star, Weckerly and his two fellow investors have planned to expand the franchise to Little Italy and Pearson Airport in Toronto, and later Waterloo, Ottawa, and maybe even Guelph. Weckerly was also in the news this week for throwing big bucks at the infamous El Macombo concert venue in downtown Toronto. The mogul quietly took the Elmo out of the eBay bidding war, and word is he plans to keep it as a concert venue.
A very special bear is getting a very special exhibit at Ryerson's Image Arts Center for a very special anniversary. 100 years after the start of World War I, an exhibit called Remembering Real Winnie will commemorate the real-life history of the children's book and television character Winnie the Pooh.
In 1914, at the onset of war, a Canadian soldier and veterinarian named Harry Colburn purchased a small bear cub for $20, and he named it Winnie after his hometown of Winnipeg. Colburn would bring the cub with him overseas when his regiment deployed, and then donated him to England's London Zoo.
It was there that the author A.A. Milne's son, Christopher Robin, fell in love with the bear during a visit to the zoo, eventually inspiring the Winnie the Pooh series and the cast of characters that came with it.
The entire Colburn family archive of original photographs, diary entries, and artifacts will be on display at Ryerson for the first time in its entirety. It's free to the public and it runs until December 7th. You can check out more at theryersonian.ca.
So a special note from me. In last week's podcast, we predicted who we thought would walk home as the winner of the Scotiabank Giller Prize, and I'm extremely proud to announce that I predicted Shawn Michaels as the correct winner, so go me.
And I would feel inadequate if we didn't pause to reflect on the death of Jovian the lemur. For almost a decade, he entertained my younger self with the Kratt brothers on the long-running children's program, Sobolewski. Jovian was 20, and according to a quick Wikipedia search, that's a pretty long life for a lemur. May he rest in peace.
That's it for the Friday Five. I'm Samantha Sobolewski.
And I'm Alexis, Allison. Instead of our regular outro music, we leave you with a speech by Lisa Kudrow's character on an episode of Scandal. She's a congresswoman running for president and lays down a seething monologue about the sexist way women in politics are covered by the media. It's courtesy of YouTube and CTV. See you next Friday.
There's something my grandmother used to do whenever I'd start dating someone. I would tell her his name, and then she would say, "Oh, what part of town does he live in?" That was her way of asking if my boyfriend was white. Oh, yeah, my grandmother was an out-and-out racist. So I know what prejudice looks like. It's not about experience, James. It's about gender. Reston's saying, I don't have the balls to be president, and he means that literally. It's offensive. The only reason we're doing this interview in my house is because you requested it. This was your idea, and yet here you are thanking me for inviting you into my lovely home. That's what you say to the neighbor lady who baked you chocolate chip cookies. This pitcher of iced tea isn't even mine. It's what your producers set here. Why? Same reason you called me a real-life Cinderella story. It reminds people that I'm a woman without using the word. For you, it's an angle. I get that. And I'm sure you think it's innocuous. But guess what? It's not.
Congresswoman Marcus.